Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co-host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast-producing badass.
I'm John Thomas. Some would say that I go a little too far with my love of all things horror, paranormal, and meta, but I say, talk nerdy to me, and I'm all yours.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our meta pals out there? In today's episode, we'll be diving into the world of reveal and restore, spiritual alchemy, exorcisms, and more with author, founder, and CEO of the Elevate Institute, Eva Venarri. Welcome to the show, Eva.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait to dive in.
We love diving into these topics, so I'm very excited that you're coming on to talk about these topics with us. Very exciting. Now, my first question for you, because I'm always full of questions, is when exactly did you start or discover your metaphysical journey?
I had an idea that I was being visited by the unseen when I was under the age of 5. And I could hear rustling and things happening in my room at night, but I did not know what they were. And of course, my parents said I was crazy. There's no such thing as ghosts, so it can't be that. Yeah, that's when it started.
And did it kind of persist throughout? Like, it just kept going, carrying through?
It started to fade as I got a little older, and it's funny how it correlated. So I'm a holistic health practitioner, and so my health was degrading with time as I aged. At 13, I was diagnosed with depression, so aged 13 years old. But these things for myself caused a blockage to seeing and receiving these messages until I started doing healing work much later.
How did you stumble across the holistic healing lane?
I'm a very stubborn person, and I kept believing the adults in my life who said, Eva, if you go to the doctor, they will find out what's wrong with you. And so for many years, that's the route I took. I went to the doctor. I said, look, I'm tired all the time. I don't feel good. I'm one of the first who was actually diagnosed with chronic fatigue. Before that, many people were not. It took ages to be, it wasn't, people didn't know what gluten-free was. This is a long time ago. I'm dating myself. So I would ask for gluten-free bread at the restaurants, and the guy would bring back more bread. Is this what you want? No. That's extra gluten. That's not gluten-free. So anyways, the journey of being healthful was the pathway to spirituality. And I didn't know that. That was not what I had in mind. I was in so much pain. I had chronic fatigue, anxiety, insomnia, depression, fibromyalgia, itchy skin, heart palpitations, short-term memory loss, hypothyroidism, and the list goes on and on. And the doctor said, look, it's all in your head. There's nothing wrong with you. Your blood type's fine. And I said, well, if I'm not finding results here, I'm going to look elsewhere. And finally, 16-year journey, I finally found the work that I now call spiritual alchemy. And I found an article about minerals and the effects they have on the body and how they can actually stop the flow of our energetics. And I went, wow, this is me. I need to work on my minerals. And so as I became more minerally balanced, more made of the stuff, the stardust we are supposed to be made of, my spirituality started to kick in, and my gift started to turn on and become more accurate and become more clear. It's kind of like, you remember when you had to turn the radio dial to get to the right station and it would be staticky, right? Before the days of the digital.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So you had to literally tune.
You'd had to tune. Yeah. Close to pulling out the aluminum tinfoil hat. It was that, it's just getting my body tuned, and all of a sudden I was hearing voices, and I didn't know what these voices were. They were guides. I didn't realize that I was speaking with the dead. I had mediumship capabilities, didn't know what it was, what to do with it. And it took years of honing that craft. That was now 14 years ago.
Was it hard, like, to figure out how to hone it in? Did you have to reach out to other people, or was this something you had to do alone?
I did it alone, not for the purpose of doing it alone. When I asked others who were considered experts in the field, they would tell me the same thing my dad did. Oh, you just ignore it. You're better off not going down that road. And that was the worst advice I could have ever received. So I figured it out, and I kept asking Spirit. I says, I would love to know who my master, like, who am I supposed to learn from? And it turned out I had to learn from those who were on the other side. So all these people that we run into on, like, ghost hunters and whatnot, they're guides in there. And that's who I learned from, was them. The invisibles.
That must have been scary and also like hard to deal with because you didn't really, your support system was not of the living. And
None.
so, yeah, especially at a young age too.
Well, young age. So this was 36. I'm not quite as
Okay.
young. Yeah, at that time. But I started the process of becoming fully recovered from the Catholic religion. I had decided I didn't want to be a part of that world anymore, but I still had contacts there. And my very first, let's call it not just paranormal, but when things fly around the house, it's I can't think of the word. But anyways,
Poltergeist type
Like a
behavior?
poltergeist.
yes, thank you. You all got it. You're perfect. So poltergeist.
You could tell we're in this world a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, it's like that. There's too much in my brain. So the poltergeist experience that I had started the whole thing. I had a very highly charged conversation with my now adult daughter, and she was a teenager. And what teenager doesn't have a highly charged conversation with their mom? So this one was rather large, and I was in her room and I was praying on her bed, just like, show me what I need to know to help heal the situation. And on her bed, behind me on the wall, were these pictures, Van Gogh paintings. They actually flew off the wall about a foot from me and hit me in the head and then dropped on the bed behind me. And that was alarming. I talk about that. It was scary. It's like, okay, how often does that happen? Not very. This was the first time for me. And I reached out to, I happened to have the phone number to my local priest, and it was interesting, his response. I'd known him for many years, but wasn't close to him, and he certainly didn't know what was going on in the house. And I says, hey, do you need to come over and bless my home? These things are happening, and my daughters are hearing voices. I'm thinking they're schizophrenic or something silly. And he says, don't be so quick to push these energies away. They have answers. Try listen. Yeah, isn't that listen to them instead of try and find out what the message is. They're reaching out to you for a reason. So that was the beginning of me not being afraid. If a priest is telling me not to be afraid, okay, I can do that. And that started the whole investigative mindset. I need to listen more as opposed to judging.
What an interesting response, because I feel like most of the kind of dogmatic religions reactions tend to not be that embracing of like, hey, just receive the message. They're telling you something. Like, I feel like that priest was the exact one you were meant to call. Like,
yeah, I agree with you. Everything happens for us instead of to us, and I didn't feel like a victim, and I think that energetically brought the right person to mind to call and talk to. And it's just, I find that to be the key to every time I do, whether it's an exorcism of a house, like there's an earthbound spirit, which is different yet, or a demonic or a hellhole or something else. There's always something that's allowing for that thing to be there. And if I address that, then rather than fighting and battling, now it's just the energies dissipate and they go their own ways where they're supposed to go. It's reaching equilibrium is my goal.
Now, with your daughter and like the poltergeist activity, were you able to connect and figure out what messages were trying to be communicated then?
I'm so glad you asked. Yes. So one of the discernments around spirit, oftentimes poltergeists are thought of to be demonic. They're not. Poltergeist is actually an energy that comes from the human that lives in the space, representing the parts of them that they have rejected. So this is a part of you that's trying to get back to you. And I mentioned a fight between my daughter and I. That's putting it mildly. We're not talking about a physical fight. We're just talking about a lot of energetic, where there's a lot of judgment and a lot of anger and a lot of rejection, usually of the self. And so this is the journey of personal development, like realizing what parts of you have you fully accepted, right? Self-love tends to be the golden thread through all of the clients that I work with that is missing. And so how to do that, we don't come here with a guidebook. Here's what you need to know about how to take care of your body, how to take care of your spirit. There's nothing. So I have to teach all this. I have to learn it and teach it. I get the lucky task.
Now, on your website, you speak to fractured souls. Is that kind of what the poltergeist activity is?
Nope. That's different yet again. So
it's okay. I'm here to learn.
I know this is so awesome, because every time I watch like one of the ghost shows, like Ghost Hunters or whatever, and they're out in Vermont, or they're someplace where a war was, and they go, oh, and this one ghost, it shows up at this specific time every single night at this hour, and they do this one thing always the same, and you can't interact with them. They're the non-intelligent recordings, right? Those non-intelligent recordings are recording the last moments, or a very, very traumatic moment in that person's life that was simply, it fractured their soul, and it left a piece of it behind to continue to live. So that's a fractured soul piece. And whenever I do is that making sense? Yeah. So whenever I do a soul retrieval with a human,
like an echo.
An echo, exactly. And so when I do the soul retrieval, somewhere an echo is healed.
So if I get this right, this is not the spirit; it's just a piece of the spirit, like an echo, or like almost like it's not the full spirit, right? Is what you're saying? It's just part of the spirit that hasn't moved on, but is that what I'm getting at? I'm sorry.
You're right. No, you're exactly on the nose. That is exactly it. It is a representation of the piece, the moments of time right before either a sudden death or something so traumatic that a person couldn't forget it. You ever had a memory that just kept playing in your mind? Like, God, wow, why do I keep thinking this one memory? And it's years ago. That's evidence on your side of a piece of you that's missing. Or left behind. And it's left behind in another time, space dimension. So it's not like you can just go back to the grocery store and pick up the piece. You can't go get it. You need help, right? That's part of what I do. I get to usher souls back together.
Is there a reason why when ghost hunters and people of that go into these areas, and why the piece of them that's left over is triggered by them? Or is it just...
Well, this is kind of the case.
Like, regardless?
Yes, it happens regardless. Yeah. It's kind of like, do you hear, if you're not in the forest, to hear the tree fall, does it still make a sound when it... Yes. It still makes a sound. It's still going to be there.
That makes sense too when we talk about people going to the same space and having different experiences, where some are like, I heard nothing, and others are like, no, it happened while I was there, and many others have experienced the same thing. It's just being at the right place at the right time to receive, I guess, or perceive the echo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good plausible reason. The other is I believe that since we're all thumbprints, we're all so different, our sensitivities and our technology to be able to, our clairs, right? So our clairvoyance, our clairaudience, all of that, if may be developed at different rates for different people. And so some are going to be very sensitive to it, and others are not.
You mentioned you clear spaces from homes, from, demonic entities and otherwise. What was your first experience within a dark or malevolent energy?
Yeah, just this morning I was able to clear a home that had they built the home on a sacred burial ground. No, number one. It wasn't the owners, it was the government. They decided to build these homes. So here they are, like the worst possible case scenario, building a home. Hope you're happy here. Here's your house. Well, so that you have that set up. Now you have that set up, and you have the environment that creates a sad, anxious energy. So the first people that moved in, they ended up manifesting for themselves an abusive relationship. And so there was a woman downstairs in the basement who would not leave the house. She was what they called an earthbound, but tied to the house. You know, you've got a lot of spirits that were human at one time. They just no longer have their body. She was one of them. The problem occurred, and the demonic started to happen when the second owner decided to hang himself in the garage. So when a person kills themselves, and I've seen this, whether that's a spiritual, like a ritual type self-sacrifice, or whether it's in this case, he just was so sad. His life was not what he wanted it to be, and he wanted to leave. He hung himself. It leaves it looks like a black hole in the space-time continuum. It's just like somebody punched a hole in the surface of the metaphysical plane. And through that, you can have all kinds of things, and demonics are entities. And so entities were all over the place. And so you have the Native American Indian collective below them complaining to the fact that they were even there. And then you had on top of that, this woman in the basement who's like, this is not my house anymore. I want my house. What are you guys doing here? All of that, causing problems, touching people and making them uncomfortable. And then you had this very sad, very I feel trapped here, I can't leave here man in the garage. So all of this was happening, and then you had other entities on top of that coming through all kinds of portals throughout the house. So that was just this morning, and we were able to clear all of it. The woman, when I first got her on the phone this morning, she says, I said, how do you feel? She goes, I am terrified. She goes, I'm really scared. And I says, what are you scared of what we're about to do? She goes, no, I'm home alone in the house. And she went from that to, I can't describe it. I don't have the words. I just feel so at peace right now at the end of all of this. And so finally, everything was at its equilibrium.
So you're able to do these clearings and exorcisms of homes over the phone?
Oh, yeah. It's all remote work because I'm just the conduit through which all the energy is then conveyed. And I call in the spirit guides, whatever spirit guides are required. Mostly it's angels. I'll call in angels, and they do all the work. They go over there, they do the scanning, they see what needs to be done, they collect all the entities, and they show me in my mind's eye. They might think this is crazy, but I'll see it. Rather than capturing it on film, I'm capturing it up here, and they're telling me what they're doing. And so they go and they collect all the entities, they put them in a bag, like Santa's Christmas bag, and they carry it off, they leave. It's kind of fun how they communicate.
How does that make you feel? Like it's gotta be draining, right? To experience all of that.
Well, I get that question a lot. So I do make sure that my energy is maintained, but part of my training is in the mystery schools, which then expands my light body. And in doing that, I get the opportunity to play with a lot more God energy than people who haven't done that training. So I've been trained to do this, and I really want to emphasize that. Like, don't go into space and start playing with these holes and these beings, and it's like, don't do that. You're putting yourself in danger. So a lot of what I've done is learn how to protect myself. So before I even got on the phone this morning with the client, I'm protecting and sealing and grading my own house. I'm putting together in place, prayer. I'm making sure that I have my spirit guides ready to go. And, it's like walking down the street with a pit bull. Nobody's going to mess with you when you've got that. So that's the kind of protection that I have. And the energy is ever present and eternal, coming through the chakras from source to chakras, through me down to Gaia and back up again. So it's constantly flowing. It's not draining out of my body. It's coming from the eternal energy source that always is.
So you're the conduit. You're there for the show, in some ways, and
Yeah.
that's incredible. I think. Have you ever seen something like, I don't know how you could even describe what that's like, what that visually looks like? Is that something that you could explain?
What it visually looks like? it's no different than seeing me right now here on our screen. We're seeing each other. I get on the phone, and rather than having a distraction of something visual for me to look at, it's happening all here inside the theater of my mind. And sometimes all my clairs are open. So sometimes I'll hear a message from a spirit guide. Sometimes I'll get something telepathically. Sometimes I'll get a scent. Sometimes I'll get a taste of something. Sometimes I'll get an emotion.
When did you first learn to connect to source and angels? Like, was this something, again, that you did by yourself, or did you go through a specific training to be able to connect to them?
I think anybody who's in this work is somewhat of a self-starter. We've all got to be a little bit crazy and a little bit curious. So it starts there. And then in order to get the training to know that every single time, if I wanted to call in a specific angel for their specific ability and have 100% certainty that I was going to get that result every time, that I got through mystery schools. So that's heavy training. It's not something that's done on a weekend or by going online. It's physical interaction with other humans, to get activations.
So I guess my question would be, if you do go to these schools and everything, and you're calling on these angels, will they answer to specific people? Will they, even if you go, like, what I'm saying is, does it matter um who you are specifically, like what kind of energy you have, or can anybody learn to do it?
Anybody can learn to do it. The important part about it, you mentioned what kind of person do you have to be. It's the energetics of integrity. Spirit doesn't have time for low self-esteem, like, oh, poor me, I can't do this, I'm all by myself. They don't have time for that. They're like, you move over, we'll find the next conduit. You've got to have a sense of understanding. We are all one. We are part of the universe. Universe has our back, etc. It's like, you've got to be strong in your, not just belief, but the who you are and the integrity of your actions. I consider myself an agent of free will. Anytime free will, so the person's ability to make up their own mind with integrity, sovereignty, anytime that is broken, you're going to find I'm right there to fix it. Like, this needs to be corrected, as long as they want it.
Are you utilizing your clairs, or let me walk that back. What gift do you utilize to be able to identify when you're working with somebody if they've got blood curses or anything like that attached to them?
Yeah, it's mostly clairvoyance, but that's how my spirits choose to communicate with me on that particular magic. And can I just tell you how prolific those are? Blood curses, especially amongst family members, they're everywhere. I'll get a complaint from somebody and I go, you know what, I think you need a restore session. It just sounds like it. And I won't know if the blood curse is there until I'm in the session. And of course, because I've protected, I'm seeing things, I'm receiving messages. And what I see, it looks like a chalice right here in my mind's eye. And it's full of blood. You can see it. So I can clear those. I've done it. It's not hard to do, but you have to know. You have to know what to do in that moment. Yeah.
What exactly is a blood curse?
A blood curse is usually issued by a parent, oddly enough, who wants to make sure that whatever gifts you as a child, as you're growing, receives, that they get it instead of you.
Oh.
Wait, what?
So let's say, for instance, you have a child and you're like, I've been, I took all my money and I raised this child. I want what I put into this child back at me. And so at birth, you take a little blood and you do the blood curse, whatever that is. I don't know how to do it. I just know it's done. And then that child grows up, they go to college, they start making tons of money. But now all of a sudden the money ends up leaving the child and going back to the parents somehow, some way. Possessions will leave the person who it belongs to and go back to them. So that's evidence of a blood curse. Just one of them.
Are you able to identify if people have like riders attached to them, like spiritual, I don't know what else to call that.
Hitchhiker.
Like a Klingon?
Yeah.
A hitchhiker?
Yeah.
So
that's
we
a
call
good
those,
way to put it.
Yeah, we call those entity attachments. So it could be a demonic possession. It could be ancestral. I was just on the phone with a friend of mine today who's also a healer, and we realized that she had an ancestral attachment, but not from the physical ancestors, from her starseed ancestors. That's
Oh.
right. Other planetary systems, right? Other star systems. So we worked through that. So what kind of gifts do you need? All of them. I feel like I went through the Walmart gift spiritual store and said, add store to cart, buy now. And I got all of them before I came here.
Well, yeah, on your website, you've got them all listed and explain, which I love. You explain what each gift is, and it's very straightforward. I love it.
Yeah, but I
You
don't
ever-
expect anybody to know. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, you ever get confused? I feel like I would get extremely confused with the things I'm connecting with, and maybe you know what to do because you have experience, but early on it may have been like, I don't know what exactly I'm dealing with here.
That's exactly what it was like early on. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure. So that's where the mystery school was able to come in and at least give me the ability to communicate very clearly with spirit. Spirit then could communicate with me what I was dealing with. And I still run into I was in a restore session last week where I was just thinking I'm going to do a regular old, soul retrieval. And I'm stopped by and I'm about to say a word. You're going to go, what? I was stopped by my spirit guide, which is a dragon. And he said, no, we have to go get the previous soul from 800 years ago back in the Amazon jungle. She was a shaman. So we've got to go get the shaman and bring them back and do a timeline merge. I'm like, what? What are we doing now? Time travel? So I never know. And it's funny because when I brought in the angels for this session, rather than giving me the whole litany of first we're going to do this, we're going to clear out the ancestral wounds, we're going to go in and clear out the trauma, we're going to go and do a soul retrieval, they were just like, we've never done this with you before, so we're going to just tell you what to do along the way. And not only did we do a soul retrieval, we did a double soul retrieval and combined the two souls together once as a physical manifestation of the timeline merging. It's all happened right here between my ears. So I got to see it. She got to experience it. And now she's having this full-on manifested relationship with the shaman in real time.
If that's not a movie, I
This
don't
is
know
awesome.
what isn't. Like, seriously, holy cow. Yeah.
About the dragons or about the shaman? Yeah.
The whole
All of
thing. All
Yeah.
of it. Yes.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I think that anybody that has gifts also, we know, have to exist in the 3D human world where it's not completely 100% accepted, everything we experience and see and say and feel and all of those things in between. And so I feel like we have to have a good sense of humor. Kind of like when it's, you're like, I have a dragon and he said, we're doing this. And you're just like, what? And it's like, no, don't worry. I got it. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's just trusting the process, right?
Well, and this was the thing. So dragons were not a part of my reality until June of this year, or last year, so 2023 June. And so this is a normal conversation starter that I have with most of my contemporaries, people who were also healers. I will say something like the following. So I was in the ether and I was doing the 3 keys to heaven to get up to the 7th dimension in order to go to a healing temple when, along the way, this is a normal conversation. So I'm doing the 3 keys, and all of a sudden I feel this energy pulling me down, almost like something pulling me underwater. So I get the intuition to look over my metaphysical left shoulder, and there's this huge eyeball, like 3 feet wide eye, and it had eyelashes, and it was red, and I knew what it was immediately. I'm like, oh my God, that's a dragon. And of course, it scared the absolute bejesus out of me. But I said, so I'm on my way to the healing temple. Would you mind letting me go? So I will catch up with you later. I'm thinking, who is this? So I get up to the 7th dimension, and I'm on my little cloud with my higher self. And I go, dude, my higher self's a guide. Dude, there is a dragon down in my ether. And he goes, I know, that's right. You need to know him. He's here to protect you. And I says, what kind of trouble am I going to get into? I need a dragon that big. Okay, so how do I describe this dragon? You've seen The Hobbit, right? With, what's the name of that dragon? It's so Schmoog. Yeah. That's the size of the dragon. Like, holy cow. So that's the kind of trouble I get into.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about that. I'd be like, I have a dragon on my team now? Yes.
He made it very, very clear that he's the master magician. I am the apprentice. I do not have a dragon. He has a human. That's been made clear.
Yeah.
I always think of the movie Coco when I think about that. Just the different spirit animals and everything. And there was what was it, the flying it wasn't a dragon, but what was it, a flying cat or something, like a jaguar or something. I'm not sure what it was,
Mhm.
but with the different colors and everything, I think that was really cool. I did have a question, Eva, about you talked about the ghost hunters. You talked about, like, the Hobbit. Are there any movies or anything that deal with these topics that you would consider like, oh yeah, that's pretty similar to what it is? Like,
Lord of the Rings, man, all the way. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
in
Yeah, no
in
joke.
just in what way? Like, any specifics?
Well, sometimes you're running into elementals that are not human. And how many characters were in Lord of the Rings that were not human?
Most of them.
Most of them. Yeah, all but the humans. So that's what is in the other world, if you'll call it physically. There's another world. The scientists call it where the tachyon field goes. So for every positive 3D molecule, I'm a tech nerd, every 3D molecule there is an opposite negative to it, and that's in the tachyon field. Well, that is also in my guessing world, I guess. I think that is the other world. And I think that's where all of these elementals live, and we could go to and visit through astral travel. Just get a dragon. I mean, that's the easiest way to go.
I'm jumping on that like tonight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm
I
like,
love that.
Smaug, where are you? I'm ready. I'll be your human pet thing. Whatever. Let's do this.
Yeah, the spirit world is full of so many things that I mean, we only think we know what we know, and I pretend to know what I know with certainty. It's just they're my experiences. There's so much more that I don't know and that I can't see because I'm limited by this human condition.
Does that give you comfort knowing, or that you've just, I guess, I feel like the more I would know about something like that, the more confused I'd get, and maybe the more scared I would get. How does that affect you?
I look at it like my love for sharks. So that's a fun statement. I love sharks. They've been around for how long, and they've really not evolved much past the eating machine that they are so perfectly designed to do. But I love them. I've learned so much about them that I absolutely adore them. Swimming with sharks is the last thing on my bucket list to do. It'll save money on my funeral. So this is it's a process of learning. The more you know about something, the less afraid you are of it. And I think that's the important thing. So if you have fear, lean into it and ask questions, get curious about it.
I kind of feel too that gifts manifest and evolve, and things reveal themselves as we're ready for them. And sometimes we think we're not ready because it's uncomfortable, but the universe is like, nah, you're ready. You just need a push.
I can't tell you. Yes, and the number of times I've received something from the metaphysic through like the very first time Spirit gave me a baton. I was driving, and they're like, here, you're going to need this. And I go, okay, what's it for? And they go, you'll see. Happens all the time. You'll see.
You'll
yeah.
see.
So yeah. It's about, you got to be patient with the unfolding, because they're not, they are not at effect of the time-space continuum the way that we are. It's easy to forget that.
Right. It could happen maybe like 30 years down the road, you'll use it.
They're like, you needed it yesterday. You'll use it in 5 minutes.
Well, that's the way it is now for me. It's like all of a sudden I've got new gifts, and I'm like, where'd that come from? Okay, so X-Men, you've got the oh my gosh, what is her name? Rogue, right? Anybody that she touches,
Yes.
she now gets to bar. Okay,
Yep.
that's me, but I don't have to touch anybody, and I get to keep the gift. So if I'm witness to a healing, or I see somebody doing something with a spirit guide and they're talking to them, that's how I learned soul retrieval. Like, what's a soul retrieval? A year ago, what's a soul retrieval? Next thing you know, I'm doing them.
That's amazing.
I love Rogue.
Yeah.
I love X-Men's and I love Lord of the Rings, so she's just
Yes.
speaking all my nerddom to me.
All of it. Yes, it's great.
All of it.
Yes to
I
all of each one of
literally have,
everything.
like, right
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
I literally have X-Men right next to me, so I'm a super nerd. Now, you created the programs within the Elevate Institute of Reveal and Restore. Can you speak to what those are?
Yeah. So reveal is the very first method that I came to know and become a practitioner of, which is the mineral alchemy work. And without this foundation, my body wouldn't be able to hold the energy that I need for the restore sessions. So they're related to each other in that way. And people know me. They've known me for years to reverse burnout. As a holistic practitioner, they would come to me with their symptoms and problems. So for anybody who's looking for longevity without medication, youthing, basically, or a recovery from chronic illness for which medicine has no cure, like the ones I listed off that I had, I'm usually the last rock people look under. And I'm like, find me sooner. That's why I come on these shows. Find me sooner. Get out of that discomfort. Because once you do, and you lift your head out of that, oh my God, I'm depressed. I have a body that doesn't work at the age of 30. Why am I waking up feeling like I did it wrong? You know, we wake up and all of a sudden we're feeling a lot older than we really are. We don't have to do that. So I resolved that. And as a result, I noticed that with people over the years, I've noticed as the toxic metals come out, as the nutrient imbalances become balanced, as the immune system kicks on and kills the viruses that have been banging around for the last 30 years or more unknowingly, even if you took antibiotics for it, your body still has to kill it off. So I noticed that when these things were killed off, when they came out of the body, what would come out were traumas, things that needed to be healed, that were not just physical. For example, my very first healing reaction was 2 weeks after I started my healing program with another practitioner. So I was getting guided and introduced to this work. And I'm thinking that my body's going to work on my complaints, my symptoms, you know, the aches and pains of my body, the joints, all of that. No. What it decided to do was release grief. My grandmother had died 7 years prior. And I do remember being in her funeral and thinking, why can't I cry? That's how rigid and toxic and hard my body was. I couldn't handle the grief of my grandmother passing. So 7 years later, I'm 2 weeks into this program, my body suddenly has enough energy to heal. And what happens is I start to see, I'm just sitting in bed, and over about a 5-minute period of time, I see her face come into my theater of my mind. So I know it's about her. And grief started at the top of my head and just started to filter through and go all the way down to my feet. And I was able to release her. 5 minutes, which would normally take, grief could take a long time, but it had been 7 years it passed. So a fraction of the time is what it took for that healing. And my body knew that, even though that wasn't a known or conscious symptom. Nobody said to me, hey, Eva, you've got unresolved grief you got to deal with. No, they said you've got arthritis. Unrelated, but related. So you never know what the body's going to work on first, second, or third. And that was the beginning of me understanding healing is a holistic. People break it down to body, mind, and spirit, and I get irritated by doing that. It's holistic. It's the whole deal. You get all of it. All of it has to heal together. And if you hit a plateau in one, physical, maybe you've got a spiritual demonic issue going on. People who go on ayahuasca trips, they have a lot of entities, and that will stop their physical and emotional healing.
So I guess, all the ailments you've had in the past, you feel so much better, it sounds like, from all the work that you've been doing. Is that correct? Is it a continuous thing?
Well, healing is a continuous thing as long as we're on planet. So we have a lot of toxins to overcome every single day. When we can see the articles, right? Anytime you scroll through the Google News, you can see them. New toxins found in the blood, not in the blood, sorry, in the water supply. Now we've got microplastics to worry about. All of these things are in our environment all the time. And if we don't have something to filter them out or fortify the body, we are the filter. We become what we are surrounded by. And so healing is a continuous and ongoing endeavor. And do I feel better? Yeah. There was a time when I couldn't tuck my kids into bed at night. I couldn't pick them up to hold them. I couldn't do anything but go to work and come home, barely make dinner. I couldn't get off the couch at the end of the night. That's how tired and fatigued I was. I was told I'd be in a wheelchair by the age of 35. And just last week, I finished dancing a performance, ballroom dancing in high heels. So, like, and I'm 50. So as I age and as I get older, I'm learning how to age more gracefully and giving the body what it needs so that it can heal itself. And it's the same process in the spirit world. It's the same process in the emotional part of our experience. So it works all the same everywhere. You just have to have your tools and your systems in place.
So the systems that we're talking about with like the mineral alchemy and like removing the toxins, is this a physical process like combined with a more energetic process, or what does this process look like?
It's really simple because it had to be, because I was still sick when I started my business. So it's a biopsy, a little bit of hair. You take a little bit of hair, you send it into the lab. The lab then comes back with a report that looks kind of like, here, I've got one I'm analyzing. I'll show it to you. And I know people listening and won't be able to see it, but at least you'll get to get an idea. It looks like gibberish, right? We're just talking about measurements of minerals and then toxic metals in the body that have been processed out through the hair. Because everything you take in, what you drink, what you eat, what sits against your skin, anything in your environment goes in. There's no doorman that says, oh, you're a toxin, you have to stay out. It's a big party. It all goes in. Your body makes more you, like MacGyver. Do you remember MacGyver?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he would put you together. He put together what he needed with whatever was on hand. Your body does the same thing to survive. So now we can see that process. Whatever's left over in the hair shows up on these reports, and then I can then intelligently say, oh yeah, you do need B12, or no, you don't. And not everybody does. Not everybody needs it at the same time. So what we need is as unique as our thumbprint. It really is. And we get to take the guesswork out of all of that. It's really simple. You take supplements, you're drinking your water, you're getting your sleep at night. That's it, really.
So I had a question about you obviously just mentioned sleeping. I know me and Ashley are really, and John too, we're all curious about, dreams and that world. Have you had any experiences in that space? I mean, obviously when you do your readings and you do the cleaning, that is over the phone, or you're conscious, right? Have you ever had experiences when you're asleep? Is that like as happen as much as being awake now?
It is not as frequent as when I'll do like the clearing I did this morning. It's less purposeful, or I should say, I haven't trained my mind to be a lucid dreamer. But I do notice the difference between a dream that I'm experiencing versus a paranormal experience. So, I mean, my mother has entered my dreams right after she passed a couple of times, and I could tell very clearly this was not something I was making up. And you wake up with a different sense. It's a different type of memory.
It's an
That makes sense,
emotional
yeah.
attachment.
Yeah, possibly. It seems more vivid. Our bodies actually don't know the difference between a memory, a dream, and reality. It doesn't know. That's why manifestation works so well. But it's like when you have that firsthand experience in the dream, and it just feels different in that moment, and then you wake up right after, you're able to capture that emotion right away. Then I can notice, oh, this is not a normal dream. This is something else that has lasting effects. It's more rich in some way. It has more energy to it.
What are the sticky spots that you refer to in the restore process?
Yeah. So this is what I've discovered. People always ask, how is it that I got an attachment? How did I get a demonic attached to me? How did I get, an ancestral? How did I get this stuff? And the sticky spot is my term for what allows the attachment. And this could be grief. It could be guilt. It could be the act of feeling obligated anytime where you have resentment it usually comes from being obligated. Those are the emotional tunes that mean you're out of integrity with your own sovereignty, right? So these sticky spots are created: guilt, shame, grief, all of those specifically. Where do we learn those? Where we're not considered worthy, where we're told we're born with sin, and where we're told we're not, we're not connected to God directly. We've been severed from our sovereignty. These are the sticky spots. Anything that removes your free will, anything that removes your direct connection, that can create the sticky spot and allow for demonics to come in. I had this really interesting question for myself. I do this in my free time. Nerds will do this. I'm sure you all know this. So I had this question, well, is the Catholic religion the only place where exorcisms exist? And so I got my phone, I'm watching TV, and I pull it out and I ask the question, and the answer was very surprising to me. All religions have a form of exorcism in them. And that's because they've all been tampered with at a base core level to control the population of their members. And so that's where you have that out of sovereignty thing. You can get great things from religion. You can also get great things from kindergarten. At some point there, you need to move past it. I know that sounds terrible, but the idea is to develop your integrity and your sense of a human being to be more of that higher self I spoke of earlier, the larger part of you that is the part that has never been born, can never die. It is a soul that is ongoing and eternal. This is full of integrity and sovereignty. That's what you want to reach for. That's what personal development is in my world. So anytime you're cut off from that energy, you're creating a sticky spot.
So you mentioned a sticky spot as far as your own guilt and your own. Are there any demonic possession situations that it's a different entity that's entering, or is it all self?
It's all but with permission. And even if it's so really good question, and it reminds me of a soul retrieval session that I did. Somebody said to me, why, I don't know why I'm here anymore. Like, they wanted to leave. And I says, that's a sign of needing a soul retrieval. And he goes, oh yeah, I've already had 3 of them. None of them worked. And I went, okay, that means there's some other attachment going on. So we get into the soul retrieval, and I see it as a sheet. The soul comes to me like a nice square unfitted sheet. And it's this beautiful sparkly thing. And in the center of his, the rest of it was together. It was unfrayed. It was not fractured anywhere, but it had the big gaping hole missing in the middle. So I asked the soul, I says, where is this piece? And it led me right to a demonic. And it was like a minor demon, if you will, that lives in a dimension where a lot of people go to when they have plant medicine journeys, specifically ayahuasca, papa, mama, whatever energies they're talking about. That. So I asked him, I says, I could see it in his hand. Visually, I'm seeing this whole movie, right, unfold in front of me. And he's got the top of the piece that matched the same color as his soul. And there's the other piece. He's holding onto it like this, like it's mine. And all he could say was he agreed to it. I said, I didn't ask you a question yet. He says, he just agreed to it, which is usually what a child says when he's got chocolate all over his mouth, and you ask him, did you eat a piece of the cake? And he goes, no, I didn't eat any of the cake, So this was a guilty being. I right away I raised kids. I know what this is all about. So I'm like, okay, how did he agree to it, right? It turned out that it wasn't him. It wasn't his father. It was his grandfather who made an agreement. And I says, well, that's a loophole. I says, how did this person now in his own 3D body become responsible for this piece of soul that you now hold? And he says, well, his grandfather passed before he could complete his contract with me. And I says, that's a loophole. That's incomplete evidence and information. You don't get to keep that piece of soul. And so somebody said to me, you should be a lawyer. And I says, why? And they said, because you like to argue. And I immediately said, no, I don't. Anyways, I argued with this sub-demon. And I'm like, no, you're going to let go of this piece. And so he did. And I actually was able to send him somewhere where it's the Galactic Federation, for lack of better terms, for processing. So there are many of these beings, and they don't have to be demonic in nature, but oftentimes anything that is not forthcoming is considered a sub-energy. They're out of integrity. And so that could be anything from a person who wants to get back into a different body and they're out of their current one. I've had that happen. You want another story? I'll give you another story.
Absolutely.
So as my kids were growing and they were learning they were developing their own clairvoyance, my daughter had an experience of a dream. She comes to me this morning. She goes, Mom, I think somebody's trying to get a hold of you through me. I says, what's going on? So she describes this dream. This ties into your previous question. She says, there's a guy who's on Neptune and he's asking for you. So immediately through that conversation, in mind's eye, I end up on Neptune and I'm there and I see the guy and my daughter's describing him to me and goes, yep, I see him. Okay, good. So she was able to close the door in her dream and go on about her day. And I'm having this conversation with this human who's not in his body. And he goes, I want a new body. I'm like, oh, where's your old one? And so he points down to what looks like on a map, New York. His body was in a coma in a hospital in New York. And he's like, if I go back to my body, I'm going to die. And it's going to be painful. I don't want to do that. And I go, that's your lot, man. I'm not going to, that's a violation of the universe for me to take your soul and put it in somebody else's body. What about the soul that's in that body? He goes, I don't care. And I go, I'm not going to do it. He says, I was told you're the one to do it. And I says, I'm not going to do it for you. So there's a line that you can cross, and there are people who will allow themselves to be paid to do those services. I'm not one of them. I won't do it. I will not cross the line, because if I do, then I become useless to everybody else. I will lose all my gifts.
Yeah, it would change the integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So every once in a while, I check on him. This is 9 years in the making now. He's still there.
It's still an update. How did you discover that people that go on ayahuasca journeys are going to that dimension where demonic entities can attach to them?
I had a relationship with someone who swore by the journey, and he would go on them often, like every couple of weeks to 3 weeks, and which is more than even the shamans recommend. But I noticed his life path started to spiral down, and there was no rescuing him, and it was just this constant change that was for the negative, not for the positive. And he felt out of control of it too. He's like, I don't know, I just have to keep going. He felt compelled. Anything that compels you is a problem. So that was an awareness. And then I noticed other people that I was running into that were on my program, in the Reveal program, who admitted to having been on a journey with plant medicine of some kind. And they also had evidence of an attachment just after. So this was years and years of experience with different people and connecting the dots and noticing it. Then I got to interview a shaman, and I asked her. I said, "This is back in Glastonbury. I was there in August, and she's in Florida, beautiful lady." And we got into the conversation about it, and she says, "Yeah, I don't do group ayahuascas anymore, because I noticed too many people were coming back with attachments." I went, oh, confirmation, there it is. And so now she does just one-on-one journeys, and she says that unless you handle the person's spirit body with a lot of that integrity I was talking about, they have to be protected. The body is at risk for walk-ins or elementals, demonics, who knows? Anything can come in while the person is off on their journey. Got to protect the body. Why
do you suppose they're drawn to that realm during this ayahuasca journey?
Without, I call it the creepy zone. That's where the Catholics will call that purgatory, or it's a creepy place. It's a place where the elementals hang out, of all kinds. Elementals can be helpful. Elementals can be harmful. They're no different than people in that way. But the why they're attracted to that, I don't know. I think that's the plant medicine. I think that's the GPS destination associated with the medicine. That's my theory.
I wonder why then shaman and medicine people use plant medicine, if that is the GPS destination.
Well, they know that that's the GPS destination, and they use it for purposes of healing. And when done properly, it's fine. If they are aware, like the lady I was talking about that does journeys. When it comes to, I was having a conversation with somebody who runs retreats in Peru, and I told him, I says, my group, as I bring them in, I don't want to host a plant medicine journey. And he goes, that's okay, you don't have to. And I gave him my reasons and my stories why. And he says, yeah, that's absolutely true. You do not want to go on a journey with a plant medicine that you yourself have not been a part of growing. Your energy should be on that plant. It needs to be part of you for this purpose. The purpose is to help heal you. Not only that, he goes, people are doing it way too often. He says, it should take a year of preparation before you do these journeys. And when you come back with all of the information that's now been preloaded, like advanced, talk about receiving more than your body can handle. It's a lot of information. It takes up to 2 years to fully recover from a single journey. And people are not doing all of the work. They're not doing what's necessary to process all of it. And so they're getting themselves into trouble thinking, oh, well, maybe I just need to go again. Now they're opening up problems. Yeah.
No.
Some impatience in there.
Yeah, and I think there's probably you're going to run into a lot more people that are having these issues, right? Because I feel like in today's world, that's what it is. Everything's a quick fix. Everything's, we gotta, because we have access to like so much technology and so much information. It's one of those things where, ooh, this is something interesting. This is something new, and I have access to it. So I'm gonna go for it. But I'm not gonna be like Ashley. You guys said it's not I'm impatient. I want results, and that, and yeah, do it as a group. I don't care. Sure, like let's get this done, and that's where we run into issues, right?
That, and everybody thinks they're exception to the rule. That won't happen to me. I'll be fine. I'm strong. I'm whatever the attribute they want to give themselves to become the exception. I get a lot of that.
Oh no, I'm terrified. I was just like, I'm gonna be the one that gets zapped into that demon zone and comes back with 30. I'm not risking it.
Knowing Ashley, yeah, that's exactly what would happen. So yeah. Except for maybe 60, not 30, but like, yeah, a whole bunch.
I mean, I'm just saying it will be one of those things. Like, guys, I'm good. I don't need an army of demons hanging on to me. I'm great. So when did you start the Elevate Institute?
Back in 2000, it was September 1st, 2011 is when I opened doors for practice. And the reason I was prompted, I mean, I had found the work and become a practitioner for my own purposes. I just wanted to save money in the process. That was my honest need. I'm like, I'm just going to become a practitioner. I'll save money and all this. And then 2 weeks before my now deceased ex-husband, so we had been 12 years divorced, and we're on the phone together, and he's complaining about all these physical symptoms. I got heart prolapse, hepatitis C, I've got, problems with arthritis, and now I've just been diagnosed with diabetes. And I'm like, oh, geez, this is all chronic illness. I know chronic illness. You should send me some of your hair. We'll figure this out. And he, divorced. So what did he do? He laughed at me. He's like, no, I'm fine. My doctors have me. I'm on medication. Hung up the phone. 2 weeks later, I'm getting a phone call from our daughter, and she's trying to tell me desperately that Dad passed. So he's 45 years old. He had a major heart attack in the hospital, died, and they couldn't recover him. Could not. So I was then responsible for clearing out his belongings, and I found 17 medications is what he was on. That's too many. That's just too much. And so it became very clear. I know it's a lot. At 45 years old, it's just insane. And all prescribed by the same doctor. I was looking at the prescription notes, all the same doctor. So they knew what they were doing to some degree. And I just thought, you know what? People need to know they have an option. They can get out of this terrible cycle, because for every one prescription medication, whether needed for life or not, the side effects will kind of trigger people for that instant relief. They end up on 3 more by the following year for the side effects from the first. So you multiply that out. It's very easy to get on 17 medications after a few years. So that situation brought me to, I need to open my doors for practice. That situation also introduced me to what I held very privately at the beginning. Dennis, my ex, he became an attachment. He decided he did not want to cross over. He did not want to go to heaven. He did not want to leave. He wanted to help me raise the kids, and he couldn't do it better from anywhere else but inside my auric field, which I wasn't having.
Oh.
And that was the beginning. I know, creepy, right? So it's like, it's funny. I heard his voice and I heard him talking, and I'm thinking, this is impossible. This is not true. It cannot be happening. It's just my imagination. Nope. No, it was real. I reached out to my practitioner and I asked her, I said, you're connected with spirit guides. Can you double check what I'm getting as intel? I think my ex-husband is attached to me. And so she kind of puts me on hold. She's like, I don't think so. Most people, they go on about their way, and I go, I need you to double check. So she puts down the phone receiver, I guess it was a cell phone. I'm, again, dating myself. The phone receiver. And I can hear her talking to her guides, and I heard her go, oh. And she gets back on the phone. She goes, you're right. He is attached to you. And so this entered the whole realm of contracts, being a spiritual surgeon, understanding how to speak with and work with angels, and the angels that taught me how to clean a soul body, create the light to heaven, and send them on. I think there was a woman who's a common guest in one of the ghost shows, and she's an older woman. She wrote a book, something like I Speak to the Dead, and that's me too. I didn't know that. It's not common. Not everybody can do that. So I have that gift. I get to usher people to the other side. And so I was taught that by angels. That's how it all started. That was the beginning. And I kept the spiritual part, that all of this metaphysical stuff, secret and hidden, until finally that part of my life was 70% of my reality, and doing hair testing in that very physical realm was the rest, So I decided I need to roll it in. And then the Elevate Institute really blossomed into what it is today. So it's been quite a journey.
When you are helping usher spirits over, is it something that you feel, hear, see, all of it? Just depends?
Oh, I can get immersed into the essence and the spiritual senses of the moment very easily, and I can be in both places at once. But it is typically very quick. The conversations are telepathic with people. Very, very often, if they're not earthbound, if they're not stuck to a house. A lot of people, when they die, they like to hang around their house. I owned this house, and therefore I'm going to take it with me. If they're those people, they need conversation. You've got to sit down and then it's the whole. Then I'm the lawyer. All right, you do realize you don't live here anymore, right? It's a whole conversation you have to have. But the people who want to go, they're quick. They're like 3 seconds or less. And I have a whole conversation. Do you want to go back? Yes, I do. You're a human. Yes, I am. And prove that and clean them off and create the light, and they're gone. It's so fast. So it's something I see mostly.
You're a limbo lawyer.
I love it.
So I love that you said you stand kind of in both worlds. That's a powerful imagery for me. Do you have to prepare yourself to be able to stand between both worlds, or are you at this point in your journey just able to click it on?
Can click it on, live pretty much in the protective state at all times. So I could, if I were to go, and a lot of people, they complain, oh, I can't get into meditation, I can't drop in. I don't even need to close my eyes. I can drop in anywhere I am and be elsewhere pretty easily. Yeah.
You are rogue.
I don't say any of that to brag. No, it takes practice. But some people don't realize that they're already in a meditative space. I'm like, describe to me what you're looking for. And it's usually some impossible, dream of something they've been taught is possible. I'm like, that's not meditation. I said, describe to me what you are doing in meditation. And more than half the time they are in meditation. So
That's amazing. This time has flown by so quickly. Do you guys have any questions for Eva or any final thoughts before we start to wrap up the episode?
I just want to say thanks for joining us. Like, I loved your stories. I feel like you have so many more that you could tell us, and I'm here for it. So I would love to have you back on,
Uh-huh.
just because there's so many other questions and so many other things I want to get into. Just because I mean, we're talking about you know death, we're talking about these different elementals, we're talking about there's so many different, there's Neptune, there's there's so many different things that, like, in 1 hour it's hard to get everything in there, right? Like, we could spend an hour just on the just out of body experiences, that kind of thing. And that's so I'm here for more.
Don't forget about the dragon, BJ. The dragon. That's the best part.
Of course, the
Yes.
dragon.
there's 4 of them currently. Yeah. So
Oh, wow. Even better. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to preface that, like, we all believe you. So, like, when we're smiling here and we're like giddy, it's not from disbelief. It is from, oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. And we 1000% believe you. And I agree with BJ. I would love to have you back on to go even further on these topics.
it would be my pleasure. Yeah, we didn't even get into my starseed and extraterrestrial experiences. So I
Okay,
know.
see? All right, we're going to have Eva part 2.
And part 3 and part 4.
And I'm writing this down right now. Starseed, extraterrestrial,
All of it.
and you have our calendar. So
Yes. Yes.
you just book forgetting time. But this has been absolutely amazing, and I feel like there's so much in this hour that just clicks. Like, you put so many pieces together, and I imagine I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. going, aha, to another thing that clicked, because that's what my brain does. Eva, where can people go if they want to find more about you and connect with you?
It's a very good question. Yeah, I have all kinds of free newsletters and a Apple a Day gift, which is basically the manual of how to take care of your body. I do those delivered to your inbox every day safely. Welcome to join that. And you can find that at theelevateinstitute.com. All one word squished together, theelevateinstitute.com. And you'll find all kinds of information. The stuff that Ashley, you were talking about that's described on my site, just go to services, you'll see it all.
There's definitely a lot on the website of information and helpful topics. So I invite all of our listeners, go check it out. Take a peek at all the tabs, because it's definitely a wealth of knowledge. Just on the website alone. All right, John Thomas, do you want to bring us home?
I do. I was waiting. My dog was barking, so I was like, shut up, dog. But like BJ and Ashley said, thanks, Eva, for coming on. This has been amazing, and I cannot wait to have you on for part 2, 3, 4, 5, and who knows how else. Wherever we go with it, like, for real. And thank you to all of our listeners for listening to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And I'm BJ Segura.
If you have any questions, comments, episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 300podcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss amazing guests like Eva.
Until next time,